Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radhamadava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantara Shimam Bhagavatam Ki Itai Gaura Premanandi. Oh glories to the assembled devotees, oh glories to the assembled devotees, oh glories to the assembled devotees, oh glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonum, Chapter 67. Lord Balaram slays Dvivida Gorilla. Text number 13 through 15. Tahilajan asya kapir Brushapair samukadibhi Darasajan swagudam tasham Ramasya cha nirikshita Tahilajam ashakapir Brushapair samukadibhi Darasajan swagudam tasham Ramasya cha nirikshita Tahilajam ashakapir Brushepar samukadibhi Darsajan swagudam tasham Ramasya cha nirikshita. Please chant. Jai Shri Kishore Kishori. Anyone else? Taha, them, the girls. Hilajan Asha, ridiculed. Kapihi, the ape, Bhru, of his eyebrows. Shepai, with odd gestures. Sammukha, by standing right in front of them. Adibihi, and so on. Darshayam, showing. Swa, his. Gudam, anus. Tasam, to them. Ramasya, as Lord Balaram. Cha, and Nirikshitaha, was watching. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Even as Lord Balaram looked on, Dvivida insulted the girls by making odd gestures with his eyebrows, coming right in front of them and showing them his anus. Purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, the gorilla was so rude that even in the presence of Balaram, he began to show the lower part of his body to the woman, and sometimes he will come forward to show his teeth while moving his eyebrows. End of quote. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti states that Dvivida will come right up to the woman and move about, urinate, and so on. Text number 14 and 15, translation. Anger, Lord Balaram, the best of fighters, hurled a rock at him, but the cunning ape dodged the rock and grabbed the Lord's pot of liquor, further infuriating Lord Balaram by laughing and by ridiculing him. Wicked Dvivida then broke the pot and offended the Lord even more by pulling at the girl's clothing. Thus the powerful ape, puffed up with false pride, continued to insult Sri Balaram. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishwadaya Krishna Prasaya Shrimate Prabhupada Iti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. There is a comment by our Vaishnavacharyas that further describe the mentality of this Dvivida gorilla. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, he disrespects the gopis by moving his eyebrows, by standing directly in front of them, and by his style of walking and gestures. He disrespected Balaram by not even glancing at him. He pulled the gopis' garments from the beds and ripped them. In this way, he insulted them. Srila Jiva Goswami comments, he made Balaram angry by laughing at him. Or he made Balaram angry and on seeing his anger, he laughed. He further offended Balaram, though Balaram had more strength. He continually harassed the woman because he was ill-behaved from pride. He behaved improperly because he was strong Another meaning of udatta is is extremely defeated. And Srila Sanatana Goswami comments, though Balaram was the best of fighter because of his strength, and though angry, he struck the ape with a rock, not his club, because of the ape's previous bhakti. The ape's bad behavior is described quickly. The ape avoided the rock and attack. The rascal made Balaram angry and laughed at him. The ape was so wicked because he pulled the clothing of the woman. He insulted Balaram, who had the greatest strength, since he was completely overcome by pride. This was because he was strong. So the campaign of this gorilla was of terror. And when he decided to punish Krishna and the Yadu dynasty for the death of Baumasura, he started this campaign in which it was not only of destruction and all kinds of chaos, but also of raping and sexually abusing the women of the region. So, with complete disregard, with a complete sense of having absolutely not being accounted and being completely above any type of dharmic laws. So proud of his capacity and his strength that he thought himself that he was above anything. He can do whatever he wants. Just proud of his strength. And this is what our acharyas, they are highlighting. What is behind this type of action? That even in front of Lord Balaram, whose strength was unequal, then you still, without understanding, you go and try to insult him and challenge him. And this is the blinding nature of pride. Srila Jiva Goswami said that he was able to do these things because of pride. Because he was strong, he was proud, and because of this pride, he was blinded. Srila Sanatana Goswami also said that although Balaram was the strongest, still, because Dvivida was completely overcome by pride, because he was strong, then he acted in such a way. The definition of this delusion, of this demoniac delusion, is given by Krishna when he defined the demoniac qualities. Chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that pride is the foremost quality of a demoniac mentality, of a demon. Pride followed by arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature, O son of Pritha. And by these qualities, naturally, these demoniac type of entities not only cause the destruction of themselves, but also cause a lot of pain and disarray on the life of others. Blinded and delusion. And there's something that in throughout history, in Western history, uh, there is also, especially Western history, is based on the the Greek Empire and the Roman empires back in time, modern history. And in the Greek pantheon, there is there's also a demoniac personification of these qualities. And the goddess of these qualities that represent these qualities is called Hybris. Hybris. And the Romans also adopted this pantheon, and they have a counterpart for this Hybris goddess or demoness. Her name was Petulantia, Petulantia, which derived the word petulance. That's how you pronounce petulance. Derives from Petulantia. And the description of this goddess, or this demoness, is the personification of the spirit of violence that evokes the following feelings: disrespect, and then there, from the word hybris, there's this word hubris that is commonly used now by scholars to describe personalities, present personalities, who out of delusion, they have this sense of grandiose that they think people who are of pride, arrogance, and all these different qualities, they think themselves that are grandiose, or they have this sense of grandeur, and they think themselves that they're more, and fully believe that they're more than that they actually are, they factually are. And that leads to all kinds of criminal behavior, because you think that you're above anything, that you can do whatever you want. One of the symptoms of this um, sort of centric or delusional sense of grandeur is that you're never wrong. You're always right. So this personification uh, evokes these feelings of disrespect, reckless pride, and arrogance. And from this type of behavior, then during the Greek Empire, then they have this law. It's an Athenian law that is called the hubris law. And that's something that is also applied in modern Western societies. And I'm going to read you a little bit about this is, of course, from Wikipedia, about this hubris law, which I'm doing this because it sort of define a little bit and even puts it in a little bit of modern terms. There's great examples, and they're all demoniac personalities that are part of this modern history, starting with, the most probably famous demons during the modern history, like Adolf Hitler And, these are all examples on this hubris type of behavior. And that allows people to commit these terrible crimes and abuse and all these type of things. Hubris is described, this is from ancient Greek, and it's described as pride, insolence, and outrage. Describe a personality quality of extreme and excessive pride or dangerous overconfidence, often in combination with or synonymous with arrogance. The term arrogance comes from the Latin adrogare, meaning to feel that one has the right to demand certain attitudes and behavior from other people. To arrogate means to claim or seize without justification, to make undue claims to having, or to claim or seize without right, to ascribe or attribute without reason. The term pretension is also associated with the term hubris, which is not synonymous with it. According to studies, hubris, arrogance, and pretension are related to the need for victory, even if it is if it doesn't if it even if it is even if it does not always mean winning. Instead of reconciliation, which friendly groups may promote, hubris is usually perceived as a characteristic of an individual rather than a group. Although the group the offender belongs to may suffer collateral consequences from wrongful acts. We see that over and over. We just saw that in the pastime that we just read, the previous pastime, in which a whole city was burned due to be associated and following one of these hubris type of leaders. The king of Kashi, who was associated with this demoniac entity, what was his name? Pondraka, King Pondraka. Hubris often indicates a loss of contact with reality, delusion, and an overestimation of one's own competence, accomplishment, or capabilities. The adjectival form of the noun hubris is hubristic. So it creates this delusion of grandeur again, and is something that is quite scary because it's what pride can lead to. And of course, we can see that in a gradation according to how demoniac propensities, have manifested in a particular person. We all suffer from that, from pride. There's, it's just part of conditioning, part of having one of these conditional bodies, that there is some sense of pride for something. According to our nature, if it's more towards the demoniac, Krishna explains there's two types of living entities. There's those who are pious and there's those who are demoniac. The pious, Krishna described in the 7th chapter, are those who approach God, either for looking for some wealth, or for diminishing some suffering, or for satisfying some inquisitive nature, or to understand the absolute truth. These are sukritinas, or pious. And there are these Duskritinas who reject God. So according to how we are in that spectrum in which you have piety and demoniac, then these qualities will manifest. And it is explained that in this age of Kali, we have these two things, or these two tendencies or propensities within, the one body. So we're dealing with that. Sometimes it's depicted in cartoons as you have an angel and you have a little demon. And they're, in one ear telling you, do the right thing, and the other thing, don't worry about it. You're great. You can do whatever you want, type of thing. So there is a little tug of war between our devotional propensities and our demoniac propensities, like that. And that's, even as devotees, we have to deal with that. That's why, as devotees, we are described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Madhurya Kandambini as Prakrita Bhaktas, which means materialistic devotees. And that's an oxymoron, because a devotee and a materialistic persons are opposite. So, they're not, a devotee is someone who is transcendental. A materialistic person is someone who is absorbed in the bodily conception, who is serving the senses, whose purpose is sense gratification. A devotee's purpose is to serve and satisfy Krishna. So how is that you have these two combined? Well, that's the situation. That's a Kali Yuga situation. And not only Kali Yuga. We have these Sakama Bhaktas, that are described as the demigods, or that they, that there's still some combination of trying to enjoy, or trying to have this sense of being an Ishvara and being a devotee too. So it's something that is there. So these propensities are there, and according to how we have diminished the influence of those propensities, there's manifestations of pride also, that have also followed that type of curve. So according to that, according to pride, what is pride does? Pride creates this delusion. Pride is blinding. It's a very, 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 very destructive type of quality. So therefore, foremost for devotees, over and over, recommendations in the scriptures by the acharyas, by the personality of Godhead, directly tell us that just as pride is a foremost quality that starts to degrade in all kinds of other terrible, terrible demoniac qualities, the foremost qualities for a devotee is humility. So we cultivate humility to overcome pride automatically. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya tells us, if we want to chant the holy name, if we want to chant the holy name properly and embrace the process of Krishna Sankirtan, then we have to cultivate these four principles of humility, be more humble than a blade of grass, be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of all prestige, and should be ready to offer respect to others. So, humility, tolerance, devoid of false ego, and respect. These are the things that will counteract these demoniac qualities that start with pride. But we have to be aware of that as long as we're conditioned, there is something there. And the pastimes of Lord Krishna are so wonderful, in which in so many of these demons, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he breaks down all these demons that Krishna dealt with during his pastimes, in which each one of them sort of highlight one of these terrible demoniac qualities. And they all graphically depict these qualities in, in their behavior. And by that graphic depiction, we can actually have a sense of how and, what being casual about these qualities can lead to. It can actually lead to not only to start to be uh, not just disregarding or having a delusion of grandeur or delusion of importance or delusion of my capacities and this and that, but not when start to be disrupted, and not only disrupted but also destructive to your own devotional path, and start to affect the devotional path of others, to the point that you can actually drag others also into a ditch. And we see that happens even within our ISKCON movement. In the history of ISKCON, we have seen that happen. I was just recently reading, or actually I was listening to the audiobook of Her Grace Jamuna Devi's biography. Beautiful. I mean, actually, everybody should read that book, especially the ladies should read that book, because it's the example of one of our greatest saints in our ISKCON society, and is one of the great women, in our devotional line. And so she's explained, in that biography, the explanation of this wonderful devotee, servant of Srila Prabhupada, who did so great service. His name was Jayatirtha Das. He became one of the leaders of Srila Prabhupada, strong leader, to the point that when Srila Prabhupada completed his pastimes in this world, he assigned 11 of his most trusted disciples to continue giving initiation. One of them was Jayatirtha. And Jamuna and Jagatarini, who was her close friend and associate Prabhupada disciple, they were very much supported and helped. They have a very close relationship with Jayatirtha. Jayatirtha at that time was the during during Prabhupada's time, and after that, during Prabhupada's time, he was the temple, the leader of the Los Angeles temple and that whole region of Southern California. And he was a GVC in that area. He was part of Srila Prabhupada's GVC men. And he was extremely supportive and protective. They describe him as such a gentleman. He was married to a wonderful devotee. He have a wonderful child, very, very talented and pure. So he had it all. Wonderful devotee, very thoughtful, very talented, a fantastic manager, to the point that Prabhupada trusted him to be one of his leading devotees. GBC, and the headquarters in the West was the Los Angeles temple, a very important temple. So Jayatirtha was a very wonderful, very well situated devotee. When Prabhupada left and he was assigned this service to give initiation, and that instruction or that led to what was called the infamous Sona Acharya time, in which there was a misinterpretation or a wrong interpretation or a wrong understanding of Srila Prabhupada's instructions. And then many of these devotees, they're starting to accept worship in the same level of Srila Prabhupada. So they placed themselves on the same level of Srila Prabhupada and accepted worship as such. Although, obviously, they were not in the same level. That led to a fall down, and Jamuna described that they were observing this, but he was so dear that they were thinking, well, it's almost like you don't want to see it. But there were symptoms of all these different difficulties in terms that started to manifest on the behavior of Jayatirtha, that at the end led to all kinds of even criminal type of behavior, that at the end led to his death. He was murdered by one of his own disciples. He started to take drugs, and have a whole commune of some sahaja type of things, especially that involved drugs and sex and all these things, in the name of Krishna consciousness. So this is the type of things, and it's a sense of, yes, I am advanced. This is what pride, you're put in a position in which you receive worship. That's very dangerous if you're not a pure devotee. Srila Rupa Goswami tells that to give initiation, to actually being able to function as a guru, you have to be able to overcome the 6 different pushes. The pushes of the tongue, Vacho Vegan, Manas Vegan, Krodha Vegan. What is it? I can't remember. There's the 6 pushes. Remember the verse? Manas Vegan, Krodha Vegan. You remember? Jiva Vegan, Udaropasta Vegan. The pushes of the tongue, the pushes of the stomach, the pushes of the genitals, the pushes of the mind, the pushes of anger. And what's the last one? The belly, yes, I said the stomach, yes. So these are, when you're able to control all these different pushes, the influence, then you can become a guru. You can give initiation to the world. So now, these devotees are placed themselves in this position, and most of them fell down. They actually went into some crazy delusions. That was incredible. I mean, from being such a wonderful, amazing servants of Srila Prabhupada that did so great service, of course, that never goes away. But some of them fell down in some very, very, you know, sort of far out ways that it was sort of one thing. How's it possible? And one of these gurus, I was supposed to be initiated by this guru back then. I'm gonna skip names in this case. Um, Fell down with a 16-year-old gum chewing girl. Like a Californian, silly girl type of thing. This personality, I mean, he was brilliant. He's still brilliant. Brilliant. I mean, amazing preacher, effulgent, and in the history of ISKCON, great achievements for Srila Prabhupada. Fantastic leader, manager, preacher, very effulgent, very influential and powerful. And there he is. You find him, walking in a mall with a 16-year-old girl underage, you know, without being able to control himself. And, and like that, there's another one who went into homosexual stuff and was caught. Anyway, it goes on like that. How is that possible? Hubris, this arrogance that comes, the pride that comes. I remember, this is back in time, a little bit of the history. When I joined in New York was at the height of this Sonal Acharya thing. We have two Sonal Acharya gurus in our New York temple. And when they will come, the setup was like this in the Brooklyn temple. The Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa-san in the middle. On the side was a Vyasa-san of one of these Sonal Acharya, and then the other side was a Vyasa-san. They all equally height. They exactly the equal Vyasa-san. And they will sit down there. And there was 150 devotees in that community at that time living in the temple. Huge. And everybody will be, just as you see in the pictures of, Srila Prabhupada with all the disciples, everybody's, just coming forward to receive a cookie from one of these, pure devotees. And then they will start to throw the cookies and there will be pandemonium. I mean, I remember there was a group of, there was a whole army of devotees who were engaged in collecting so-called Sankirtan at that time. It was collecting money. But there was such faith and belief. There was one devotee in particular who was the poster boy of a perfect devotee. He was very handsome, American boy, white, tall, very handsome, and just perfect. The guy was just perfect. He was the best on everything. He will wake up, super early, chant his round, and then you see him. Then he was the best of the collectors, Sankirtan devotee, and in his room he has an altar, and the altar was the shoes of one of the spiritual masters, and he will worship that every day. And it was that type of faith, and that type of worship these personalities were accepting. So I'm saying this, that it happens of those levels. We have to be with the lesson that we learn in ISKCON when that whole system collapsed. It was exposed by Krishna, and the devotees who allowed themselves to be victims of these demoniac propensities, they have to pay a big price. Some of them, like Jayatirtha, was killed. Some of them, ended in jail. Some of them ended, being exposed and expelled from ISKCON. Some of them have returned, in a now more humble, and have learned the lessons, but how this thing can happen. So, what to speak of ourselves who are trying to do service? We have to be very watchful. And again, it manifests as a delusion. Pride, okay, you know, Krishna gave me some ability, you know. Every one of us have a particular ability, a gift. And then when it becomes recognized, I start to feel certain sense of pride. And then sense the sense of entitlement is, I should be recognized like this. And with that sense of entitlement, then it goes, this sort of arrogance that, oh, you're not recognizing me. Do you know who I am? So, and then if you don't recognize me, or you challenge me, or you do something like that, then I don't like you. And then it can turn this I don't like you, this sort of bias towards others, it can turn into something that can be at times being even violent. And this violence doesn't have to be physical violence, but it could be, also emotional and subtle type of violence. In terms of, okay, I don't like you, so I'm going to isolate you. I'm not going to give you any facility. I have power. So I'm going to influence others also you are like a black sheep. You should be aside from our group, type of thing. Discrimination. That's how that type of violence is there. So these are things that happens, I'm saying. And these pastimes graphically depict this type of behaviors. I mean, gross what is depicted here of what this Dvivida gorilla, and this is an example of one who was such a close devotee, pure devotee, to be able to serve the personality of Godhead directly in his entourage, because he was part of the entourage of Lord Ramachandra. And to be falling into that space, you think about it. To fall down in such a way that now he's committing these most gross, hideous crimes of, not only this act of violence towards women and disregard to the personality of God. Blinded by his pride because he was strong. And we have to be watchful. Any comments or questions? We have 5 minutes before the article. Anyone?
Isn't that anger he had because his friend was killed by Krishna?
Talk closer to the microphone.
So the gorilla was reacting because he was angry on Krishna. He had his friend killed by Krishna.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the also qualities of this demoniac and deceit, uh, Krishna explains that is anger is one of them. You know, pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature. So anger is one, yes, and uh, especially anger is a quality that is even then in the spiritual world. You know, Shrimati Radharani is famous for displaying this quality of being angry at Krishna also. But Shrimati Radharani's anger is exclusively meant to give Krishna's pleasure. And it gave Krishna so much pleasure. And that's her mood. So that's a spiritual quality. That's when the real quality comes. It's just everything is just these are natural emotions that enhances and create, varieties in the relationship. But in this degraded form, in which is all centered in this selfish condition, sort of desire to displace Krishna of his position and take that position oneself, that is demoniac. That's what makes it demoniac. When we're trying to eliminate Krishna. So then, Icha Dvesha Shamutena, the desire for Krishna's position and the hatred towards Krishna because he has that position. That's what brings us into this material world. So it's there. That's what I'm saying. Is all the stuff is in here, and we have to be watchful. And therefore, the process of sadhana bhakti is important because you want to be born. It's like we have a disease that is within the body. We're infected. So if your immune system strong, then the virus won't flourish. The immune system will take care of it, will keep it at bay. But if your immune system is weak, then you're finished. So we have that disease. The medicine is in the process of sadhana bhakti. The medicine that is given to us is chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. That's the medicine. And the lifestyle for be able to 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 have that medicine act properly is the process of sadhana bhakti. And that, creates the immunity to this disease. If we don't do that, or we do it in a casual way, like sometimes, I have to take some medicines and I tend to be a little casual, but I have my wife who is on the top of myself telling me, take your medicine, take your medicine, take your medicine, like that. So, yeah, Kishore. So, if we're casual, then we can be vulnerable. What to speak if we don't practice sadhana bhakti, we don't chant the whole day, then you're finished. You're finished. So that's the thing. Yeah. Um, I unless with one more question, I'm gonna. stop here. Are we good? Subhakrit Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thanks for the class. Hare Krishna. Nice. You made a lot of points, but and this, especially this translation purport, it seems that at present we are living in a world in such atmosphere is like that outside. I mean,
Do you mean that now these days? Oh my God. Even our leaders are like the perfect example of this hubristic, type of, I mean, it's incredible. Is this Kali Yuga is
yeah. So generally, so products of Kali Yuga and the atmosphere. So generally, we are also disturbed by uh, this very easily. Even we come to Krishna conscious, our mind diverts all over because we are not fixed in Krishna consciousness.
that is
But
completely true.
but the teachings are so this perfect. If you take Krishna consciousness, we can slowly, gradually progress in Krishna consciousness. So
Yes.
Prabhupada's teachings are so nice. Like you were saying of demonic qualities, pride. So three, especially it says lust, greed, and anger. They go to hell.
Yes. Yes.
And these are the three gates for hell: lust, greed, and anger. So when we enter the gate, we have different doors like that. So there are three gates going to hell. So I just like this came in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you
So
so.
it's interesting that now the situation is that like, it's not that in our spiritual life you will be all the time in hell. Like it says like if you don't follow the whatever faith, you go to hell. But in our Krishna consciousness, it's not like that. It's a process where you uplift yourself. It's a rectification, in other words, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not hell is forever like that. And generally now the situation is like that. We invite the modern society invites hell.
Mm.
The
Mm.
gate, last gate.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful comments, Prabhu. Thank you. Okay, I stop here. Grantara Shiman Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thank you so much. Jai Shishikishor Kishori.